Picture this. It's 2 a.m. and you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Your mind is racing. The project deadline. The dentist appointment you forgot to schedule. Your mother's birthday next week. The broken garage door. The email you never sent. The book you promised to read. The vacation you need to plan. The bills. The responsibilities. The endless, relentless stream of things that need to be done. Your chest tightens. Your breathing becomes shallow. You reach for your phone, not to sleep, but to write another note to yourself. Another reminder. Another task added to the mental pile that's already crushing you. Does this sound familiar? That feeling of drowning in your own life? That sense that no matter how hard you work, how many hours you put in, how many lists you make, you're always behind. Always forgetting something. Always letting someone down. Always disappointing yourself. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not incapable. You're just using a system that was never designed for the reality we live in today. A system that's failing you, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because the very foundation of how we think about productivity is flawed. What if I told you that there's a way to live where your mind is clear? Where you sleep peacefully at night, knowing that everything that needs to be done is captured, organized, and will be handled at the right time. Where you can be fully present with the people you love, without that nagging voice in your head reminding you of all the things you're forgetting. This isn't a fantasy. This isn't some productivity guru's empty promise. This is the reality that millions of people have discovered through a system that changed everything. A system created by a man who understood that the problem isn't that we have too much to do. The problem is that we don't have a trusted way to manage what we need to do. Tonight, we're going to walk through Getting Things Done. The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. This isn't just another productivity book. This is a blueprint for reclaiming your mind, your time, and your life. David Allen didn't just write a book, he created a methodology that has transformed millions of lives across the globe. I've lived with this system for years now. I've seen it work in my own life, and I've watched it work in the lives of countless others. This isn't theory. This is practice. This isn't philosophy. This is freedom. David Allen spent decades studying how the most effective people in the world actually get things done. Worked with executives, entrepreneurs, students, parents, and everyone in between. What he discovered wasn't just techniques or tips. He discovered principles, universal truths about how our minds work, how we process information, and how we can create systems that support our humanity rather than fight against it. This book isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters, when it matters, with a clear mind and an open heart. It's about creating space for creativity, for relationships, for the things that truly matter to you. It's about getting things done so you can live your life. Let me share with you the chapters we'll explore together tonight. Chapter 1. A New Practice for a New Reality. Chapter 2. Getting Control of Your Life. The 5 Stages of Mastering Workflow. Chapter 3. Getting Projects Creatively Underway. The 5 Phases of Project Planning. Chapter 4. Getting Started. Setting up the time, space, and tools. Chapter 5. Capturing, corralling your stuff. Chapter 6. Clarifying, getting into empty. Chapter 7. Organizing, setting up the right buckets. Chapter 8. Reflecting, keeping your system functional. Chapter 9. Engaging, making the best action choices. Chapter 10. Getting control of projects. Chapter 11. The power of the capturing habit. Chapter 12. The power of the next action decision. Chapter 13. The power of outcome focusing. Let's begin this journey, one chapter at a time. Chapter 1. A New Practice for a New Reality. There was a time when work stayed at work, when you could finish your day, close the office door, and truly be done. When the pace of life moved at a human speed, and the amount of information coming at you was manageable, when you could rely on your memory, your intuition, and simple systems to keep track of what needed to be done. That time is gone forever. We live in a world that our grandparents couldn't have imagined, a world where information flows at the speed of light, where opportunities and obligations multiply exponentially, where the line between work and life has been erased completely, where being connected means being always available, always responsible, always on. David Allen opens this journey by acknowledging something that most productivity experts refuse to admit. The old ways of managing our lives don't work anymore. The methods our parents used, the systems we learned in school, the approaches that worked even 10 years ago, they're not just outdated, they're actively harmful. Think about how you currently manage your commitments. Sticky notes scattered across your desk, mental reminders that you hope you'll remember, email inboxes that serve as to-do lists, calendars that overflow with appointments but miss the real work that needs to happen, multiple apps, multiple systems, multiple ways of trying to capture the chaos of modern life. You're not managing your life. You're managing your anxiety about your life. You're not organizing your work. You're organizing your worry about your work. And that's exactly why you feel so exhausted, so overwhelmed, so constantly behind. Allen introduces us to a profound realization. Your mind is designed to have ideas, not to store them. Your brain is not a filing cabinet. It's not a computer hard drive. It's a creative, intuitive, problem-solving machine that works best when it's free from the burden of trying to remember everything. Every time you try to use your mind as a storage system, you're fighting against its natural design. Every time you tell yourself, "I'll remember that," you're creating what Allen calls open loops, unresolved commitments that take up mental energy even when you're not consciously thinking about them. Have you ever noticed how you can be sitting at dinner with someone you love and suddenly remember something you forgot to do? That's your subconscious mind working overtime, constantly scanning your mental inventory, trying to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. It's exhausting, it's inefficient, and it's completely unnecessary. The new practice Allen introduces isn't about working harder. It's about working with your mind instead of against it. It's about creating external systems that your mind can trust completely, so your mind can do what it does best. Think, create, and connect. This isn't just about productivity. This is about presence. When your mind is clear, when you know that everything important is captured and will be handled appropriately, you can be fully present with whatever you're doing. You can have dinner with your family without mentally reviewing your to-do list. You can focus on important work without worrying about what you're forgetting. You can sleep peacefully, knowing that tomorrow is handled. The reality we live in demands a new approach. The volume of commitments, the speed of change, the complexity of modern life. It all requires systems that can keep up. But more than that, it requires systems that can give you back your mental freedom. Systems that can restore your ability to think clearly, to be present, to engage fully with your life. This is where our journey begins. Not with another technique or another app, but with a fundamental shift in how we think about getting things done. A shift from trying to remember everything to trusting that everything is captured. A shift from managing chaos to creating clarity. A shift from surviving our lives to actually living them. Chapter 2. Getting control of your life. The 5 stages of mastering workflow. Control. It's such a loaded word, isn't it? For so many of us, the idea of being in control feels impossible. We look at our overflowing inboxes, our endless to-do lists, our competing priorities, and we feel anything but in control. We feel reactive, scattered, always one step behind. But what if I told you that the feeling of being out of control isn't about having too much to do? What if it's about not having a trusted system for managing what you need to do? What if control isn't about doing everything perfectly, but about knowing that everything is handled appropriately? David Allen reveals that there are 5 stages to mastering workflow. 5 fundamental processes that, when implemented correctly, create the sense of control and clarity we all crave. These aren't just productivity techniques. They're the foundation of a life lived with intention and ease. The first stage is capture. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Everything that has your attention, everything that represents a commitment or a potential action, everything that might need to be done, it all needs to be captured in a trusted system outside your mind. Imagine walking through your day with a mental net, catching every thought, every idea, every commitment as it occurs to you. The book you want to read, the call you need to make, the conversation you need to have, the project you want to start, the problem you need to solve, all of it gets captured. Not in your mind, but in a system you trust completely. This isn't about remembering to capture things. This is about creating a reflex, a habit so ingrained that capturing becomes as natural as breathing. When something has your attention, you capture it. Always. Without exception. Without judgment. Without trying to figure out what it means or what to do about it. You just capture it. The second stage is clarify. This is where most people get stuck. They capture things, but they never clarify what they actually mean. They write down mom's birthday, but never clarify that this means they need to call their sister to coordinate, buy a gift, and make dinner reservations. They write down quarterly report, but never clarify the specific actions required to make it happen. Clarifying means asking the fundamental question. What does this mean to me? Is it actionable? If yes, what's the next action? If no, is it reference material, something to review later, or something to eliminate entirely? This stage transforms vague commitments into clear, actionable items. The third stage is organize. Once you've clarified what things mean, you need to organize them in a way that makes sense. Not organized by priority. That's a trap. Not organized by deadline. That's reactive. Organized by context and type. Phone calls go together. Errands go together. Things to discuss with your boss go together. Projects are tracked separately from actions. This isn't about creating the perfect system. It's about creating a system that works with your natural thinking patterns. A system that makes it easy to find what you need when you need it. A system that supports your workflow instead of fighting against it. The fourth stage is reflect. This is the stage that separates the people who get things done from the people who just manage to do things. Reflection is the regular review of your system to ensure it stays current, relevant, and trustworthy. It's the weekly review that keeps everything fresh. It's the daily check-in that keeps you on track. Without reflection, even the best system becomes stale. Without regular review, your trusted system becomes just another place where things go to die. Reflection is what keeps your system alive, current, and truly useful. The fifth stage is engage. This is where you actually do the work. But here's the beautiful thing. When you've captured everything, clarified what it means, organized it appropriately, and reflected on it regularly, engaging becomes effortless. You're not constantly second-guessing yourself. You're not worried about what you're forgetting. You're not paralyzed by the enormity of everything you need to do. You're simply choosing the next action based on context, time available, energy level, and priority. You're engaging with your work from a place of clarity and confidence, not from a place of anxiety and reactivity. These 5 stages work together like a symphony. Each stage depends on the others. Stage supports the others. When all 5 stages are working harmoniously, you experience something magical. The feeling of being in control without being controlling. The feeling of being productive without being stressed. The feeling of being engaged without being overwhelmed. This is what mastery looks like. Not perfection, but flow. It's not rigid control, but responsive flexibility. Not doing everything, but doing the right things at the right time with the right energy. Chapter 3. Getting projects creatively underway. The 5 phases of project planning. Close your eyes for a moment and think about the last project you struggled with. Maybe it was planning a wedding, launching a new product, organizing a family reunion, or completing a major work assignment. Remember that feeling of not knowing where to start? That sense of being overwhelmed by the scope and complexity? That frustration of having a vision but no clear path to make it reality? You're not alone. Most of us have never been taught how to think about projects in a way that actually works. We've been taught to jump straight into action, to create detailed plans before we understand what we're really trying to accomplish, to manage tasks without managing outcomes. David Allen introduces us to a natural planning model that revolutionizes how we approach any project, from the simplest task to the most complex endeavor. This isn't about project management software or complicated methodologies. This is about how your mind naturally works when it's working well. The first phase is purpose. Why are you doing this? What's the real intention behind this project? This isn't just about the surface-level answer. It's about connecting with the deeper purpose that will sustain you through the challenges ahead. When you're planning a vacation, the purpose isn't just to go on vacation. It might be to reconnect with your family, to experience a new culture, to rest and recharge, or to create memories that will last a lifetime. When you're clear on your purpose, every decision becomes easier. Every obstacle becomes manageable. Every action becomes meaningful. Most projects fail not because people don't work hard enough, but because they lose sight of why they're doing the work in the first place. Purpose is your North Star, your guiding light, your source of motivation when things get difficult. The second phase is principles. What are the guidelines that will govern how you approach this project? What values do you want to honor? What boundaries do you want to maintain? What standards do you want to uphold? If you're planning a wedding, your principles might include staying within budget, honoring family traditions, minimizing stress, or creating an authentic expression of your relationship. If you're launching a business, your principles might include maintaining work-life balance, treating customers with respect, or building sustainable growth. Principles aren't restrictions, they're liberating. They help you make decisions quickly and confidently. They keep you aligned with what matters most to you. They prevent you from getting lost in the details and losing sight of what's really important. The third phase is vision. What does success look like? What will be different when this project is complete? What will you see, hear, and feel when you've accomplished what you set out to do? Vision isn't about creating a perfect plan. It's about creating a clear picture of the outcome you want to create. It's about engaging your imagination and your intuition. It's about connecting with the emotional reward of completion. When you can clearly see what success looks like, your subconscious mind starts working on your behalf. You notice opportunities you might have missed. You make connections you wouldn't have made. You find solutions you couldn't have planned. Your brain is wired to move you toward clear, compelling visions. The fourth phase is brainstorming. This is where you let your mind run free. What are all the things that might need to happen? What are all the ideas that might be relevant? What are all the resources that might be helpful? The key to effective brainstorming is to separate generating ideas from evaluating ideas. Don't judge, don't organize, don't prioritize, just generate. Let your mind make connections. Let your creativity flow. Capture everything that comes to mind without filtering or editing. Most people skip this phase and jump straight to organizing and prioritizing. But when you skip brainstorming, you miss the creative solutions, the innovative approaches, the breakthrough ideas that can make your project not just successful but extraordinary. The fifth phase is organizing. Now you take all those ideas and organize them into a coherent plan. What are the major components? What are the key milestones? What are the dependencies? What needs to happen first, second, and third? This is where you create your roadmap. This is where you break down the complex into the manageable. This is where you transform vision into actionable steps. But here's the crucial insight. Organizing comes last, not first. Most people start with organizing and wonder why they feel uninspired and uncreative. When you organize before you've clarified your purpose, established your principles, envisioned your outcome, and brainstormed your options, you're organizing the wrong things. These 5 phases work together to create what Alan calls relaxed focus. You're relaxed because you know where you're going and why. You're focused because you have clear next actions. You're creative because you've engaged your whole mind in the process. You're confident because you've thought through the project from every angle. This isn't just about getting projects done. It's about getting projects done in a way that honors your values, engages your creativity, and creates outcomes that truly matter to you. Chapter 4. Getting started. Setting up the time, space, and tools. There's something sacred about the moment you decide to change your life. You feel it in your chest, that flutter of excitement mixed with determination. You can see the possibilities stretching out in front of you. You're ready to transform how you work, how you think, how you live. But then reality hits. Where do you start? How do you begin implementing a system that will revolutionize your productivity? How do you create the foundation for the life you want to live? David Allen understands this moment. He's seen thousands of people stand at this threshold, excited but uncertain, motivated but overwhelmed. This chapter is his gift to you, a clear, practical guide to creating the physical and mental space for your transformation. The first thing you need is time. No, not just any time, but dedicated, uninterrupted time to set up your system properly. Allen recommends blocking out anywhere from 4 to 6 hours for your initial setup. This isn't time you're taking away from important work. This is the most important work you'll ever do. Think about it this way. You're not just organizing your stuff. You're creating the infrastructure for your future success. You're building the foundation for a life of clarity, focus, and accomplishment. You're investing in your ability to be present, productive, and peaceful. But here's the challenge. Everything in our culture fights against this kind of sustained, focused work. We're addicted to the quick fix, the instant solution, the immediate gratification. We want to implement a life-changing system in 10 minutes between meetings. We want to revolutionize our productivity while multitasking and checking email. It doesn't work that way. Transformation requires commitment. It requires you to slow down in order to speed up. It requires you to invest time up front to save time forever. It requires you to trust the process, even when it feels uncomfortable. You also need space, physical space, where you can work without interruption, where you can spread out all your stuff and sort through it systematically, where you can think clearly and make decisions without distraction. This doesn't have to be a perfect office or an expensive setup. It can be your kitchen table, your bedroom floor, or a corner of your living room. What matters isn't the elegance of the space, but the intention you bring to it. What matters is that it's yours, that it's quiet, and that it supports your work. The tools you need are surprisingly simple. Alan isn't advocating for expensive software or complex systems. He's advocating for tools that work, tools that you trust, tools that support your natural thinking patterns. You need something to capture ideas, a notebook, a digital app, or even index cards. Something that's always with you, always accessible, always ready. You need filing supplies, folders, labels, a filing cabinet, or boxes. You need a calendar system and a lists system. You need a place to store reference materials and a place to store project plans. The key is choosing tools that you'll actually use. It's not tools that look impressive or tools that everyone else uses, but tools that fit your lifestyle, your preferences, and your habits. Tools that make it easier to do the right thing, not harder. But here's what Alan really wants you to understand. The tools are the least important part of the system. The most important part is your commitment to using them consistently. The most important part is your willingness to trust the system, even when it feels unfamiliar. The most important part is your decision to honor your own productivity and well-being. As you set up your space and gather your tools, you're not just preparing to implement a system. You're preparing to reclaim your life. You're preparing to experience what it feels like to have a clear mind, to sleep peacefully, to be fully present with the people you love. This setup phase is a ritual, a ceremony, a declaration of your commitment to living differently. It's your way of saying to yourself and to the world, I value my time, my energy, and my attention. I'm ready to create systems that support my highest aspirations. I'm ready to get things done so I can truly live. Don't rush this phase. Don't skip the setup because you're eager to see results. Trust the process. Trust the time investment. Trust that creating the right foundation will make everything else easier, faster, and more enjoyable. Your future self is counting on the choices you make right now. Make them with intention, with care, and with the knowledge that you're building something that will serve you for years to come. Chapter 5. Capturing. Corralling your stuff. Imagine for a moment that you could see everything that has your attention right now. Not just the obvious things. Your email, your calendar, your formal to-do lists, but everything. Every nagging thought, every half-formed idea, every small commitment, every mental note you've made to yourself. Picture it all laid out in front of you like a vast landscape of mental clutter. The book you've been meaning to read, the conversation you need to have with your colleague, the squeaky door that needs fixing, the birthday party you need to plan, the investment research you want to do, closet you want to organize, the skill you want to learn, the relationship you want to improve. Now imagine how it would feel to have all of that out of your head and into a trusted system. To know that nothing is forgotten, nothing is lost, nothing is slipping through the cracks. To experience the profound relief of a mind that's free to think, create, and be present. This is what David Allen calls capturing, and it's the foundation of everything that follows. But capturing isn't just about making lists. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with your own thoughts and commitments. Most of us have been conditioned to use our minds as storage systems. We tell ourselves, we'll remember that important idea, that crucial deadline, that meaningful conversation we need to have. We pride ourselves on our ability to juggle multiple priorities in our heads simultaneously. But here's the truth that Allen wants you to understand. Your mind is terrible at storage and incredible at recognition. Your mind is designed to create, to connect, to solve problems, to generate insights. When you force it to also serve as a filing cabinet, you're not just being inefficient. You're actively working against your own neurology. Every time you think I need to remember that, you're creating what Alan calls an open loop, an incomplete commitment that your subconscious mind will continue to track until it's resolved. These open loops don't just take up mental space. They create a constant, low-level stress that affects your ability to focus, your ability to be present, and your ability to think clearly. The capture process is about closing these loops by getting everything out of your head and into a system you trust completely. Not just the big, obvious things, but everything. The small errands, the random ideas, the vague intentions, the someday maybes, all of it. This might sound overwhelming, but it's actually profoundly liberating. When you commit to capturing everything, you're not adding to your burden. You're removing the burden of trying to remember everything. You're freeing your mind to do what it does best. Alan introduces the concept of collection buckets, places where you capture everything that has your attention. These might be physical inboxes, digital apps, notebooks, or voice recorders. The key is that they're always accessible, always trusted, and always used. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to evaluate, organize, and prioritize as they capture. They capture the idea for a new project and immediately start planning it. They capture the reminder to call their mother and immediately start thinking about what they'll say. They capture the thought about reorganizing their office and immediately start worrying about when they'll find time. This defeats the entire purpose. Capturing is about getting things out of your head, not about making decisions about them. It's about creating space for thinking, not about thinking itself. It's about clearing the mental deck so you can see clearly. The magic happens when you separate capturing from processing. You capture without judgment, without analysis, without immediate action, and you trust that there will be time to clarify, organize, and act on everything you've captured. This requires developing what Alan calls capture reflexes, the automatic habit of immediately capturing anything that has your attention. When you think of something that needs to be done, you capture it. When you have an idea worth exploring, you capture it. When you remember something important, you capture it. This isn't about becoming obsessive or neurotic. It's about becoming free from the constant mental burden of trying to remember everything. Free from the nagging worry that you're forgetting something important. Free from the exhausting effort of mental juggling. As you develop your capture habits, you'll begin to notice something remarkable. Your mind becomes clearer, calmer, and more creative. You'll find yourself more present in conversations because you're not mentally reviewing your to-do list. You'll sleep better because you're not lying awake trying to remember what you need to do tomorrow. You'll think more clearly because your mental bandwidth isn't consumed by storage concerns. This is the first step in your transformation. Not the most glamorous step, perhaps, but the most crucial. Everything else depends on your ability to capture comprehensively and consistently. Everything else depends on your willingness to trust the process and get everything out of your head. Chapter 6. Clarifying. Getting in too empty. There's a moment in every overwhelmed person's life when they realize they've been carrying around a collection of vague anxieties disguised as responsibilities. You know the feeling, that sense that you have a million things to do, but when you try to identify exactly what needs to be done, everything feels fuzzy, undefined, and somehow untouchable. This is the gap between capturing and clarifying, and it's where most productivity systems break down. We collect our thoughts, our commitments, our ideas, but we never take the crucial step of clarifying what they actually mean and what we need to do about them. David Allen calls this process getting in too empty, and it's perhaps the most transformative skill you can develop. It's the difference between having a collection of worries and having a clear set of actions. It's the difference between feeling overwhelmed and feeling in control. The clarifying process begins with a simple but profound question. What is it? This isn't asking for a label or a category. It's asking for true understanding. When you look at the item you've captured, what does it actually represent? What does it mean to you? What commitment or intention does it embody? Let's say you've captured Mom's birthday. What is it really? Is it a reminder that her birthday is coming up? Is it a commitment to call her? Is it a project to plan a celebration? Is it a note to buy a gift? Until you clarify what it actually means, it remains a vague source of mental tension. The second question is even more powerful. Is it actionable? This forces you to distinguish between things that require action and things that don't. Not everything you capture needs to be acted upon. Some things are just reference material. Some things are ideas for someday. Some things are trash that can be eliminated entirely. If something isn't actionable, you have three choices: eliminate it, file it for reference, or put it on a someday maybe list. This isn't about being ruthless or uncaring. It's about being honest about what actually requires your attention and what doesn't. If something is actionable, you need to clarify what action is required. And here's where Alan introduces a concept that will revolutionize how you think about tasks. The next action. Most people think in terms of projects, goals, and outcomes. They write down organize office, or plan vacation, or improve relationship with spouse. But these aren't actions. These are outcomes. They're multi-step projects that require a series of actions to complete. The next action is the specific, physical, visible action that will move the project forward. For organize office, the next action might be buy file folders at office supply store or sort through papers on desk for 30 minutes. For plan vacation, the next action might be research flight options online or call travel agent to discuss destinations. This distinction between outcomes and actions is crucial because your mind can't engage with vague intentions, but it can engage with specific actions. You can't do organize office, but you can do sort through papers on desk. You can't do improve relationship, but you can do schedule dinner date with spouse. When you clarify the next action, you're doing more than just creating a to-do item. You're creating a bridge between your current reality and your desired outcome. You're making the abstract concrete, the overwhelming manageable, the impossible inevitable. But clarifying doesn't stop with identifying the next action. You also need to clarify the desired outcome. What does success look like? What will be different when this project is complete? This isn't just about planning. It's about creating a clear target that your subconscious mind can work toward. The clarifying process also involves determining the appropriate context for each action. Is this something you can do at your computer? Something that requires a phone call? Something that needs to be done at a specific location? By clarifying context, you're setting yourself up to make efficient use of your time and energy. As you work through this clarifying process, something magical happens. The vague anxieties that have been consuming your mental energy transform into clear, manageable actions. The overwhelming project becomes a series of doable steps. The impossible becomes inevitable. This is what Alan means by getting in too empty. You're not just processing items from your capture buckets. You're transforming mental clutter into mental clarity. You're converting anxiety into action. You're creating the conditions for effortless productivity. The goal isn't to have an empty inbox or an empty notebook. The goal is to have a clear mind. The goal is to know that everything you've captured has been thoughtfully considered and appropriately handled. The goal is to trust your system completely so your mind can focus on what matters most. Chapter 7. Organizing. Setting up the right buckets. Think about the last time you were in a beautifully organized space. Maybe it was a high-end store, a friend's impeccably arranged home, or even a well-designed office. Remember how it felt to move through that space? How easy it was to find what you needed? How calm and clear your mind felt in that environment? Now think about the last time you were in a chaotic, disorganized space. Remember the frustration of not being able to find what you needed? The mental energy it took just to navigate the clutter? The way the disorganization seemed to cloud your thinking and drain your energy? The way you organize your commitments, your actions, and your information has the same impact on your mental state. Organization isn't just about efficiency. It's about creating the conditions for clear thinking, calm focus, and effortless action. David Allen's approach to organization is revolutionary because it's based on how your mind naturally works rather than how you think it should work. Most organizational systems are built around priority, forcing you to constantly evaluate and reevaluate what's most important. But your mind doesn't work that way in the moment of action. When you have 20 minutes between meetings, you don't want to analyze priorities. Yes. You want to scan your available actions and choose something that fits your time, energy, and context. When you're running errands, you don't want to sort through everything you need to do. You want to see only the actions that can be done while you're out and about. This is why Allen organizes actions by context rather than priority. Phone calls are grouped together because they all require the same tool and the same mindset. Errands are grouped together because they all require being away from your desk. Computer tasks are grouped together because they all require focused time at your workstation. This contextual organization creates what Allen calls trusted buckets. places where you can put things with complete confidence that you'll find them when you need them. These aren't just filing systems. They're extensions of your mind, organized in a way that supports your natural patterns of thinking and working. For actions that can be done anywhere, you have a general next actions list. For actions that require specific tools or locations, you have context-specific lists, calls to make, errands to run, computer work, things to discuss with my assistant. Each list contains only the actions that can be done in that context. But organization goes beyond just actions. You also need trusted buckets for projects, reference materials, and someday maybe items. Your projects list keeps track of all your multi-step outcomes without cluttering your action lists. Your reference system holds information you might need later without mixing it with things you need to do. Your someday maybe list captures ideas and possibilities without overwhelming your current commitments. The key to effective organization is what Alan calls the 1 minute rule. If something can be done in less than a minute, do it immediately rather than organizing it. This prevents your system from becoming clogged with tiny actions that take longer to track than to complete. For everything else, you need a simple decision tree. What is it? Is it actionable? If not, eliminate it, file it, or put it on someday. Maybe. If it is actionable, will it take more than one action? If not, put it on the appropriate next actions list. If it will take multiple actions, create a project and identify the next action. This might sound complicated, but it's actually incredibly simple once you internalize the logic. You're not trying to remember complex rules or arbitrary categories. You're following your mind's natural way of processing information and making decisions. The beauty of this organizational approach is that it scales infinitely. Whether you have 10 commitments or 10,000, the same principles apply. Whether you're managing a simple personal life or a complex professional role, the same buckets work. Whether you're organized by nature or scattered by temperament, the same system supports you. But here's what Alan really wants you to understand. Organization isn't about perfectionism. It's about trust. You need to trust that when you put something in a bucket, it will be there when you need it. You need to trust that your system will surface the right actions at the right time. You need to trust that nothing important will slip through the cracks. This trust is built through consistency, not perfection. It's built by reliably using your system, not by creating the perfect system. It's built by honoring your commitments to yourself, not by making commitments you can't keep. When your organizational system is working properly, you don't think about it. You simply trust it. You put things where they belong and retrieve them when you need them. You focus on the work itself rather than on managing the work. You experience the profound peace that comes from knowing that everything is exactly where it should be. Chapter 8. Reflecting. Keeping your system functional. There's a moment that comes to everyone who tries to implement any productivity system. Usually happens about 3 weeks in. You've set up your capture buckets, clarified your actions, organized your lists, and you're feeling pretty good about your progress. Then life happens. A major project gets added to your workload. A family crisis demands your attention. Opportunity emerges that requires immediate action. Your carefully organized system starts to feel overwhelming again. Items pile up in your capture buckets. Your action lists become stale. Your projects lose momentum. This is the moment when most people abandon their system. They conclude that productivity systems don't work, that they're too busy for organization, that they're just not the type of person who can maintain this level of structure. But David Allen understands this moment. He's seen it happen to thousands of people. He knows that the problem isn't with the system or with the person. The problem is the absence of reflection. Reflection is what keeps your system alive, current, and trustworthy. It's what transforms a collection of lists into a dynamic, responsive tool for managing your life. It's what prevents your system from becoming just another source of overwhelm. Allen introduces the concept of the weekly review, a regular time to step back from the day-to-day. Urgency, and ensure that your system is complete, current, and aligned with your priorities. This isn't just administrative maintenance. This is the practice that keeps you connected to your bigger picture while staying on top of your immediate commitments. The weekly review begins with collecting loose ends. What's been captured? What's been floating around in your head? What new commitments have emerged? What changes have occurred? This isn't about judgment or perfection. It's about completeness and trust. You review your action lists to see what's been accomplished, what's no longer relevant, and what needs to be updated. You review your projects to see what's moving forward, what's stalled, and what needs attention. You review your calendar to see what's coming up and what preparation is needed. But the weekly review is more than just updating lists. It's a time for reflection, for stepping back and asking deeper questions. Are you spending time on what matters most? Are your projects aligned with your values and goals? Are you saying no to the right things and yes to the right things? This reflection isn't about creating more work or more pressure. It's about creating more clarity and more peace. When you regularly connect with your bigger picture, your daily actions feel more meaningful. When you regularly clean up your system, your mind feels more clear. When you regularly assess your commitments, your choices feel more intentional. The weekly review also includes what Alan calls mind sweep, a process of clearing your mental RAM by capturing anything that's been accumulating in your head. This isn't a one-time activity. It's a regular practice that keeps your capture reflexes sharp and your mind clear. But reflection isn't just about the weekly review. It's also about developing what Alan calls situational awareness, the ability to regularly assess your current context and choose appropriate actions. This might be a quick review of your action lists when you have unexpected free time. It might be a brief check-in with your projects when priorities shift. It might be a moment of pause to ask, what's the best use of my time right now? This kind of reflection isn't rigid or time-consuming. It's flexible and intuitive. It's about staying connected to your system and your priorities throughout the day. It's about making conscious choices, rather than just reacting to whatever demands your attention. Alan also emphasizes the importance of reflecting on your system itself. What's working well? What's creating friction? What needs to be adjusted? Your system should evolve with your life, not constrain it. Regular reflection ensures that your tools and processes continue to serve you, rather than becoming obstacles. The power of reflection lies in its ability to create what Alan calls perspective. When you're caught up in the urgency of daily life, it's easy to lose sight of what's really important. When you're responding to constant demands, it's easy to feel reactive and out of control. When you're focused on individual tasks, it's easy to lose connection to your larger purposes. Reflection restores this perspective. It reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. It helps you see the forest as well as the trees. It connects your daily actions to your deeper values and longer-term goals. But perhaps most importantly, reflection builds trust. Trust in your system, trust in your judgment, and trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. When you regularly review and update your commitments, you know that nothing important is falling through the cracks. When you regularly assess your priorities, you know that you're focusing on what matters most. This trust is what transforms productivity from a burden into a blessing. This trust is what allows you to be fully present with whatever you're doing. This trust is what creates the mental space for creativity, for relationships, for the things that make life truly meaningful. Chapter 9. Engaging. Making the best action choices. It's Monday morning, 9:47 a.m. You're sitting at your desk with your coffee, ready to tackle the day. You open your perfectly organized action lists, and suddenly you're paralyzed. You have 43 possible actions you could take. All of them seem important. All of them seem urgent. All of them seem to be calling for your attention simultaneously. How do you choose? How do you decide what to do next when everything feels like it needs to be done now? How do you engage with your work in a way that feels intentional rather than reactive, productive rather than busy, meaningful rather than frantic? This is the moment where most productivity systems fall apart. They're excellent at helping you capture and organize your commitments, but they offer little guidance on how to actually make choices about what to do when. They assume that having a list is enough, that organization equals action, that clarity leads automatically to engagement. David Allen understands that this isn't true. Having a trusted system is crucial, but it's not sufficient. You also need a way to engage with that system that honors your human nature, your changing energy levels, your shifting priorities, and your finite attention. Allen introduces what he calls the 4 criteria model for choosing actions in the moment. This isn't about rigid rules or complex algorithms. It's about a natural, intuitive way of making choices that aligns with how your mind actually works. The first criterion is context. Given where you are and what tools you have available, what actions are actually possible. If you're in your car, you can't do computer work. If you're at your computer, you can't run errands. If you're in a meeting, you can't make phone calls. Context eliminates many options immediately and helps you focus on what's actually doable. The second criterion is time available. If you have 5 minutes between meetings, you're not going to start a complex project. If you have 3 hours of uninterrupted time, you're not going to limit yourself to quick administrative tasks. Time available helps you match your actions to your available bandwidth. The third criterion is energy available. This is the criterion that most people ignore, and it's often the most important. Different actions require different types of energy. Creative work requires fresh, focused energy. Administrative tasks can be done with routine energy. Difficult conversations require emotional energy. Physical tasks require, physical energy. When you're exhausted, don't try to do your most important creative work. When you're energized, don't waste your energy on mindless busy work. When you're emotionally drained, don't schedule difficult conversations. When you're physically restless, don't force yourself to sit at a desk. The fourth criterion is priority. Among the actions that fit your context, time, and energy, which one will create the most value? Which one will move you closer to your important outcomes? Which one aligns with your current priorities and commitments? But here's what Alan wants you to understand. Priority is the last criterion, not the first. Most people try to work from priority alone, forcing themselves to do important work regardless of context, time, or energy. This leads to frustration, inefficiency, and burnout. When you work with all 4 criteria, something magical happens. You stop fighting against your natural rhythms and start working with them. You stop forcing yourself to do inappropriate work and start choosing appropriate work. You stop feeling guilty about your choices and start feeling confident about them. Alan also introduces the concept of levels of focus, different altitudes from which you can view your work and make decisions. Sometimes you need to focus on the immediate actions in front of you. Sometimes you need to focus on your current projects. Sometimes you need to focus on your areas of responsibility. Sometimes you need to focus on your longer-term goals and vision. The key is to consciously choose your level of focus based on what's most needed in the moment. When you're feeling overwhelmed, zoom out to see the bigger picture. When you're feeling disconnected, zoom in to specific actions. When you're feeling unclear about direction, zoom out to purpose and vision. When you're feeling paralyzed by possibilities, zoom in to next actions. But perhaps most importantly, Alan emphasizes that engaging is about more than just doing tasks. It's about doing the right tasks with the right energy at the right time. It's about honoring your humanity while accomplishing your goals. It's about being productive in a way that feels sustainable and meaningful. This means saying no to actions that don't serve you, even if they seem urgent. It means choosing actions that align with your values, even if they're not the most efficient. It means working with your natural energy patterns rather than against them. It means being intentional about how you spend your time and attention. When you engage with your work this way, productivity becomes a practice of self-respect. You're not just getting things done. You're getting the right things done in the right way at the right time. You're creating a life that feels both accomplished and sustainable, both productive and peaceful. Chapter 10. Get in control of projects. There's a special kind of overwhelm that comes with projects. It's different from the daily task overwhelm. It's deeper, more persistent, more paralyzing. It's the feeling that you have too many balls in the air, too many commitments in motion, too many outcomes to track and manage. You lie awake at night thinking about the project that's behind schedule, the project that's lost momentum, the project that's become more complex than you anticipated. You feel responsible for outcomes that seem to have too many variables, too many dependencies, too many things that could go wrong. This project overwhelm isn't just about having too much to do. It's about having too much to think about. It's about trying to hold complex, multi-step outcomes in your mind, while also managing the day-to-day actions required to make them happen. David Allen revolutionizes how we think about projects by introducing a simple but profound distinction. Projects are outcomes, not actions. Most people treat projects as big, complex tasks that somehow need to be done. But projects can't be done. Only actions can be done. Projects can only be achieved through a series of actions. This distinction changes everything. When you think of launch new website as a project, it feels overwhelming and abstract. When you think of launch new website as an outcome that requires specific actions like meet with designer to discuss layout and write content for homepage, it becomes manageable and concrete. Alan introduces the concept of project thinking, a way of approaching any multi-step outcome that keeps you focused on progress rather than perfection, on next actions rather than final results, on what you can control rather than what you can't. The foundation of project thinking is the recognition that every project needs two things: a clear outcome and a clear next action. The outcome gives you direction and motivation. The next action gives you momentum and progress. Without both, projects stagnate. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to plan the entire project before they take any action. They want to see the whole path before they take the first step. They want to eliminate all uncertainty before they begin. This leads to analysis paralysis, perfectionism, and procrastination. Alan advocates for what he calls outcome-based thinking, combined with next action thinking. You need to be clear about where you're going, but you don't need to know exactly how you're going to get there. You need to know your next action, but you don't need to know every action that will follow. This approach honors how projects actually unfold in real life. They're not linear progressions from start to finish. They're dynamic, evolving processes that require constant adjustment, frequent recalibration, and regular decision-making. You can't predict every step, but you can take the next step. The key to project control is what Alan calls project reviews, regular check-ins with your projects to assess progress, identify obstacles, and determine next actions. This isn't about micromanaging or obsessing over details. It's about staying connected to your projects without being controlled by them. During a project review, you ask simple questions. What's the current status? What's working well? What's not working well? What obstacles have emerged? What support is needed? What's the next action? These questions keep you engaged with your projects without overwhelming you with details. Alan also emphasizes the importance of project parking, having a trusted place to capture project-related thoughts, ideas, and information without losing focus on immediate actions. Your mind is constantly generating project-related insights. But if you don't have a place to capture them, they either get lost or they distract you from your current work. But perhaps most importantly, Alan helps you understand that project control isn't about controlling every aspect of every project. It's about staying appropriately engaged with your projects while maintaining your sanity and your perspective. It's about being responsible without being overwhelmed, committed without being obsessed. This means accepting that some projects will take longer than expected. Some projects will require more resources than anticipated. Some projects will need to be modified or even abandoned. This isn't failure, this is reality. Projects are experiments, not guarantees. When you approach projects with this mindset, you experience what Alan calls relaxed control. You're engaged but not anxious. You're committed but not rigid. You're responsible but not overwhelmed. You're making progress without sacrificing your peace of mind. This relaxed control extends to how you think about project timelines, project resources, and project outcomes. You do your best planning with the information you have available. You commit to taking the next action. You trust that the path will become clearer as you move forward. This isn't about lowering your standards or reducing your ambitions. It's about pursuing your goals in a way that honors your humanity, respects your limitations, and acknowledges the inherent uncertainty of any meaningful undertaking. Chapter 11. The Power of the Capturing Habit. There's a moment in every person's transformation when they realize they've been carrying around an invisible burden their entire life. It's the moment when they discover how much mental energy they've been spending on trying to remember things, trying not to forget things, trying to keep track of things. It's the moment when they realize that their mind has been operating like a computer with too many programs running in the background. Slow, inefficient, constantly on the verge of crashing. It's the moment when they understand that they've been living in a state of low-level anxiety, always worried about what they might be forgetting. This is the moment when the power of the capturing habit becomes clear. It's not just as a productivity technique, but as a fundamental shift in how you relate to your own thoughts, your own commitments, your own life. David Allen returns to the concept of capturing in this chapter because he knows it's the foundation of everything else. Without reliable capturing, you can't have reliable clarifying. Without reliable clarifying, you can't have reliable organizing. Without reliable organizing, you can't have reliable reflecting. Without reliable reflecting, you can't have reliable engaging. But the capturing habit is more than just a step in a process. It's a way of honoring your own thoughts and commitments. It's a way of saying to yourself, what I think matters. What I commit to matters. What I experience matters enough to be captured and considered. Most people have a complicated relationship with their own thoughts. They dismiss ideas as not important enough to write down. They trust their memory to handle commitments that are too complex for any memory to handle reliably. They let insights slip away because they don't have a system for capturing them. This isn't just inefficient, it's disrespectful to your own creativity, your own intelligence, your own inner life. Every time you have a thought worth capturing and you don't capture it, you're sending a message to your subconscious mind that your thoughts aren't valuable enough to preserve. The capturing habit changes this relationship. When you consistently capture your thoughts, ideas, and commitments, you're telling your mind that its contributions are valuable. You're creating a feedback loop that encourages more creativity, more insight, more engagement with your own life. Allen describes the capturing habit as ubiquitous capture, the ability to capture anything, anywhere, anytime. This isn't about being obsessive or neurotic. It's about being prepared. It's about having systems that support your natural thought processes, rather than fighting against them. This means having capture tools that are always accessible: a notebook in your pocket, an app on your phone, a voice recorder in your car, a pad of paper on your nightstand. The specific tools matter less than the consistency of having them available. But ubiquitous capture isn't just about having tools. It's about developing what Allen calls capture reflexes. The automatic habit of immediately externalizing anything that has your attention. This becomes as natural as breathing, as unconscious as walking. When you develop these reflexes, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to trust that its thoughts will be preserved, so it becomes more willing to let them go. Your mind begins to trust that its commitments will be tracked, so it becomes more willing to make them. Your mind begins to trust that its insights will be captured, so it becomes more willing to generate them. This trust creates what Allen calls mind like water, a state of mental clarity and calm that allows you to respond appropriately to whatever comes your way. Your mind isn't cluttered with the effort of trying to remember everything. It's free to think, to create, to respond, to engage. The capturing habit also changes how you experience your daily life. Instead of feeling like you're constantly forgetting things, you feel like you're constantly remembering things. Instead of feeling like good ideas are slipping away, you feel like good ideas are being preserved and developed. This isn't about capturing everything indiscriminately. It's about capturing everything that has your attention. Everything that represents a commitment. Everything that might be valuable later. It's about developing the judgment to know what's worth capturing and the discipline to capture it consistently. Allen also emphasizes that capturing is a gift you give to your future self. Every time you capture something now, you're making life easier for yourself later. Every time you rely on your memory instead of your system, you're creating problems for yourself down the road. This perspective transforms capturing from a burden into a practice of self-care. You're not just managing your commitments. You're caring for your mind, your well-being, your ability to be present and engaged with your life. The power of the capturing habit extends beyond personal productivity. It affects your relationships, your creativity, your peace of mind, your ability to sleep well at night. When you know that everything important is captured, you can be fully present with whatever you're doing. This is what Allen means when he talks about the power of capturing. It's not just about getting more done. It's about being more present, more creative, more engaged, more at peace. It's about creating the conditions for a life that feels both productive and meaningful. Chapter 12. The power of the next action decision. There's a particular kind of paralysis that afflicts even the most motivated people. You know what you want to accomplish? You can see the outcome clearly. You understand why it matters. But when you sit down to work on it, you find yourself staring at the project, unable to move forward, unable to make progress. This isn't laziness. This isn't lack of motivation. This isn't fear of failure. This is the paralysis that comes from trying to engage with outcomes instead of actions, from trying to do projects instead of taking steps, from trying to accomplish everything instead of doing something. David Allen calls this project paralysis, and he knows exactly why it happens. Your mind can't engage with abstractions, but it can engage with concrete, specific, physical actions. You can't do organize the garage. You can do spend 30 minutes sorting through the boxes on the left side of the garage. You can't do improve your health, but you can do call the doctor's office to schedule an appointment. This is the power of the next action decision. It's the difference between being stuck and being in motion, between feeling overwhelmed and feeling empowered, between dreaming about outcomes and creating them. The next action decision isn't just about breaking down big projects into smaller tasks. It's about translating your intentions into reality, your visions into progress, your commitments into momentum. It's about bridging the gap between what you want to accomplish and what you can actually do. Most people think in terms of results, goals, and outcomes. They write down plan vacation or launch new business or strengthen relationship with spouse. But these aren't actions. These are achievements. They're the end result of actions, not the actions themselves. Alan revolutionizes productivity by insisting that everything meaningful starts with the next action. Not a perfect action, not a complete action, not an action that will solve everything, but a concrete, specific, doable action that will move you forward. The next action decision also forces you to confront the reality of implementation. It's easy to commit to vague intentions like get organized or exercise more. It's much harder to commit to specific actions like sort through desk drawers for 20 minutes or go for a 30-minute walk after dinner. This confrontation with reality is actually liberating. Instead of carrying around the weight of impossible commitments, you're making achievable commitments. Instead of feeling guilty about not doing everything, you're feeling good about doing something. Instead of being paralyzed by the scope of what needs to be done, you're energized by the clarity of what can be done. The next action decision also reveals the true nature of procrastination. Most procrastination isn't about avoiding work. It's about avoiding the discomfort of not knowing what work to do. When you're clear about your next action, procrastination becomes much less likely. Alan describes the next action decision as the most powerful productivity practice because it eliminates the friction between intention and action. Instead of having to figure out what to do every time you want to make progress, you've already figured it out. Instead of having to overcome the inertia of starting, you've already identified how to start. But the next action decision isn't just about individual tasks. It's about creating what Alan calls action momentum, the sense that you're always moving forward, always making progress, always engaged with your important outcomes. This momentum is psychological as much as it is practical. When you know your next action, you feel in control. When you complete a next action, you feel accomplished. When you identify the next action after that, you feel prepared. This cycle of clarity, action, and progress creates a sense of mastery and confidence that extends far beyond individual projects. The next action decision also changes how you think about time and energy. Instead of needing large blocks of time to make progress, you can make progress in small increments. Instead of needing perfect conditions to start, you can start wherever you are with whatever you have. This flexibility is crucial in our fragmented, interrupt-driven world. Most people wait for the perfect time, the perfect energy, the perfect conditions to work on their important projects. But the next action decision allows you to work with whatever time and energy you have available. Alan also emphasizes that the next action decision is a practice, not a one-time event. Every time you complete an action, you need to decide what the next action is. Every time you review a project, you need to identify the next action. Every time you encounter an obstacle, you need to determine the next action to overcome it. This practice of constantly identifying next actions keeps you engaged with your projects without being overwhelmed by them. Keeps you focused on progress rather than perfection, on movement rather than completion, on what you can do rather than what you can't do. The power of the next action decision extends beyond productivity into every area of life. It affects your relationships, your health, your personal growth, your creative pursuits. Any outcome that matters to you can be advanced through the simple practice of identifying and taking the next action. This is what Alan means when he talks about the power of the next action decision. It's not just about getting more done. It's about experiencing yourself as someone who makes things happen, someone who creates progress, someone who turns intentions into reality. Chapter 13. The Power of Outcome Focusing. Imagine for a moment that you could see your life from above, like a bird soaring high over the landscape of your days. From this altitude, You can see the patterns, the connections, the bigger picture that's invisible when you're caught up in the details of daily life. You can see how your individual actions connect to create projects, how your projects connect to create areas of responsibility, how your areas of responsibility connect to create the life you're actually living. You can see the alignment between what you say matters to you and what you actually spend your time doing. This is the perspective that David Allen calls outcome focusing, and it's the culmination of everything we've explored together. It's the practice of regularly connecting with your bigger picture, your deeper purposes, your most important outcomes. Most people live their lives from ground level, responding to whatever demands their immediate attention. They're constantly busy, but rarely clear about whether their busyness is creating the life they actually want. They're always doing, but rarely asking whether what they're doing is worth doing. Outcome focusing isn't about abandoning the practical tools of productivity. It's about ensuring that those tools serve your larger purposes rather than becoming ends in themselves. It's about making sure that your efficiency serves your effectiveness, your productivity serves your priorities, that your systems serve your soul. Allen introduces the concept of levels of perspective, different altitudes from which you can view your life and make decisions. At the ground level, you're focused on immediate actions and urgent demands. At higher levels, you're focused on projects, areas of responsibility, goals, vision, and purpose. The magic happens when you can consciously choose your level of perspective based on what's most needed in the moment. Sometimes you need to zoom in to specific actions. Sometimes you need to zoom out to see the bigger picture. Sometimes you need to connect your daily actions to your deepest purposes. This ability to shift perspective is what creates what Allen calls appropriate engagement. The ability to be fully present with whatever level of work is most important right now. When you need to focus on actions, you focus on actions. When you need to focus on purpose, you focus on purpose. When you need to connect actions to purpose, you do that. But outcome focusing isn't just about perspective, it's about intention. It's about regularly asking yourself, what am I trying to accomplish? What outcomes am I trying to create? What kind of life am I trying to live? These questions aren't meant to create pressure or judgment. They're meant to create clarity and direction. They're meant to ensure that your incredible energy and attention are directed toward outcomes that truly matter to you. Allen emphasizes that outcome focusing is particularly important in our culture of constant busyness. It's easy to get caught up in doing more, being more efficient, handling more commitments. But efficiency without effectiveness is just elaborate procrastination. Productivity without purpose is just organized chaos. Outcome focusing helps you distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, between what's demanding your attention and what deserves your attention, between what you can do and what you should do. This distinction is crucial because attention is your most valuable resource. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. You can always acquire more skills, but you can't acquire more hours in the day. You can always buy more tools, but you can't buy more attention. How you direct your attention determines the quality of your life. When you focus on outcomes that matter to you, your daily actions feel meaningful. When you focus on outcomes that don't matter to you, your daily actions feel empty, regardless of how productive you are. Allen also connects outcome focusing to what he calls stress-free productivity, the ability to be highly productive without feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or burned out. This isn't about working less. It's about working more intentionally, more strategically, more aligned with your deeper purposes. When your actions are aligned with your outcomes, work feels energizing rather than draining. When your projects are aligned with your values, effort feels meaningful rather than futile. When your daily choices are aligned with your life vision, productivity becomes a spiritual practice rather than a mechanical process. The power of outcome focusing extends beyond individual productivity into every area of life. It affects your relationships, your health, your creativity, your contribution to the world. When you're clear about the outcomes you want to create, you make different choices about how to spend your time, energy, and attention. This clarity also creates what Allen calls natural planning, the ability to move from outcome to action in a way that feels organic and sustainable. When you're clear about what you want to accomplish, your mind naturally generates ideas about how to accomplish it. When you're clear about your purpose, your actions naturally align with that purpose. But perhaps most importantly, outcome focusing reconnects you with your own agency, your own power to create the life you want to live. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, outcome focusing reminds you that you have choices, that your actions matter, that you can create meaningful outcomes even in difficult circumstances. This is what Alan means when he talks about the power of outcome focusing. It's not just about achieving more goals. It's about creating a life that feels aligned, meaningful, and authentically yours. It's about using the tools of productivity to serve the purposes of a life well lived. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to pause for a moment and notice something. Notice how different you feel right now compared to when we started. Notice how the overwhelming complexity of modern life has been transformed into something manageable, something systematic, something that honors both your humanity and your aspirations. This transformation isn't just about productivity. It's about reclaiming your life from the chaos of constant reactivity and creating space for what truly matters to you. It's about moving from a state of constant anxiety, it's about what you might be forgetting, to a state of confident clarity about what you need to do. David Allen didn't just write a book about getting things done. He created a blueprint for living with intention, working with purpose, and being fully present in your own life. He showed us that the goal isn't to do more things, but to do the right things in the right way at the right time. The 5 stages of workflow: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage aren't just productivity techniques. They're practices for living consciously. They're ways of honoring your commitments, respecting your time, and creating space for creativity, relationships, and joy. When you capture everything that has your attention, you're not just managing your to-do list. You're freeing your mind to do what it does best: think, create, and connect. When you clarify what everything means, you're not just processing information, you're making conscious choices about how to spend your life. When you organize your commitments appropriately, you're not just creating efficiency, you're creating the conditions for peace of mind. When you reflect regularly on your system and your priorities, you're not just maintaining your lists, you're staying connected to what matters most. When you engage with your work from a place of clarity and intention, you're not just being productive, you're living your values, creating your vision, and contributing to the world in ways that feel meaningful and sustainable. The power of this system isn't in its complexity, it's in its simplicity. It's in its respect for how your mind actually works. It's in its recognition that you are not a machine to be optimized, but a human being to be honored and supported. This system gives you something that no amount of willpower or motivation can provide: trust. Trust that everything important is captured. Trust that everything captured will be appropriately handled. Trust that your time and energy are being directed toward outcomes that matter to you. This trust creates space. Space for creativity. Space for relationships. Space for rest. Space for the unexpected opportunities and experiences that make life rich and meaningful. But perhaps most importantly, this system gives you presence. When you know that everything is handled, you can be fully present with whatever you're doing. You can have dinner with your family without mentally reviewing your to-do list. You can work on important projects without worrying about what you're forgetting. You can sleep peacefully, knowing that tomorrow is organized and manageable. This presence is the ultimate goal of any productivity system. Not to do more, but to be more. Not to accomplish more, but to experience more. Not to manage more, but to live more fully. As you implement these practices in your own life, remember that perfection isn't the goal. Progress is the goal. Consistency is more important than intensity. Small daily practices are more powerful than dramatic overhauls. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust that these simple practices, applied consistently, will transform not just your productivity, but your entire experience of being alive. The cage of overwhelm that has been holding you captive isn't as strong as you think. The key to your freedom isn't in doing more or working harder. It's in creating systems that support your humanity, honor your commitments, and create space for what matters most. You have everything you need to begin. You have a mind capable of thinking clearly when it's not cluttered with the effort of remembering everything. You have tools that can capture, organize, and track your commitments. You You have the wisdom to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important. Most importantly, you have the power to choose where to direct your attention, to choose how to spend your time, to choose what kind of life you want to create. The journey of getting things done isn't really about the things at all. It's about the person you become in the process. It's about the life you create when you're no longer imprisoned by overwhelm, paralyzed by complexity, or exhausted by inefficiency. This is your invitation to step into that life, to experience what it feels like to have a clear mind, an organized life, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters to you. The tools are simple. The principles are timeless. The transformation is profound. Your journey begins now. If this exploration has resonated with you, if you've felt the possibility of a different way of living and working, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect of this system speaks most powerfully to you? What changes are you most excited to implement in your own life? And if you've found value in this journey we've taken together, consider subscribing to continue exploring the ideas, practices, and perspectives that can transform how you experience your work, your relationships, and your life. Remember, you are not your to-do list, you are not your calendar, you are not your commitments. You are the consciousness that engages with all of these things. And when you learn to engage consciously, intentionally, peacefully, you don't just become more productive, you become more alive. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Till next time, may your mind be clear, your heart be peaceful, and your life be lived with intention.